class for City Campus. That's group 50, and this is group 51. Yeah, we are still finishing. Please tell Grace Amuboja that I am struggling to admit. I don't know why she's stuck at the lobby because it's accessible. She should be able to walk into the meeting directly. So she may want to exit and try logging in again. Because even though I'm trying to admit her, nobody was admitted. You just walked in. She's stuck there. I don't know why. So she should try to get off and come in again. Grace Amubuja, and she should be fine. Okay. So that she can have access. So I was saying that your IA, like the notice sent to you from the main course site, stated it is scheduled for the 13th and 16th of August, this 2022. We will receive confirmation from the UGCS on the specific day for the specific student of a specific campus. The determinant will be your ID. So you will look out for the schedule that we'll receive. We are still waiting to receive that. The team is instructed by the university to work that out so that we don't have issues. You know, the numbers are large, and we are all going to use the computers of the university at specific centers. They want to make sure they give you the best of service. So you should only keep these periods open whilst we wait. Hopefully before in days, we should get a notice from UGCS, University of Ghana Computing Systems. Then we can firmly communicate on the group site. Now note that the scheduling will be done per ID, not per group. So you should look out for your ID for your campus. You see that? And then go to the place assigned, not the place you choose. You will be asked out if you go and do that, or even sanctioned by the university. Go with your ID, just in case there is a need to prove your identity because it's an exam. And then you go there, it's short answers, multiple choice questions for the mid-sem. Critical thinking on the units done so far. Unit 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and then 7. You should be engaging the Unit 7 slides and even the recorded video at the dossier. You should be doing that already. So that whether we get to meet on Thursday or not, whatever the issue, you are prepared. That's how you manage yourself. So that's by way of introduction for today. Let me take your question. That's why I didn't make us use the holiday, because if we did, then even if we do a makeup, you won't have much time to do your own mopping up and it will be too pressed. So let's use the time. This hours is being recorded for those who can make it, like we always do. And then we'll place it in your resource too. I think I should also prompt, some of you do not know that, but the chat, that circle thing on the icons there, the one for chats, conversations, when you select that and you go into that document, you see all the recordings for every session we've had since we started. Is there. I use the same link for both group 50 and 51. So you will always have access to those chats, even if you don't want to go to the academic channel where it is already prepared for us. I don't know how long it stays here because the university's team's space, I don't know how much space we have, but I know that perhaps until vacation, the chats will be available there, the links, then you just play back and listen to it, or you copy the link as I share it on Sakai, because I save my recordings on the academic channel on YouTube, then generate the link for you. Either way, you will have access to the link, so you cannot have an excuse whatsoever. And the class is not locked. I don't lock it. The link is accessible to you anytime, unless I have to use it for something else. Then I may lock it for stuff like that. Anyway, so here we are. I want to take questions on what we've done so far, Unit 6, if you have any, quickly. Let me mop up for you. If there's a specific part you don't understand, again, we had a good time with the first session, like always. I know you will also give me a good time, so we can help you do well. Now, when we met last week, I'm waiting for questions. If I see a hand up, I'll stop and take it. But these are the slides that we dealt with. So let's see if we've covered everything. If there is something we need to touch on, as I project, then you ask me, what is the difference between a deductive argument and an inductive argument? Godfred, Opon's hand is up. Godfred, go ahead. Godfred.
Okay. Please, I need clarification about our first assignment.
Yeah. What is the clarification? I've graded it. What is the clarification, please? Go ahead.
Madam, please, I want to know the nature of the dispute. Is it substantive or verbal?
It depends on the explanation you want to give. I can defend the reason I give for why. You understand? So we didn't mark whether it is verbal or substantive, but more importantly, what your reason for saying what you say is. That's what was graded. And then we expressed a strong what's the word? A strong dislike for copied work. That one was strongly, uh, rejected. Where there is copied work, plagiarized content, it's a straight zero. Sometimes maybe 1% for the effort at stealing. So we didn't really mark whether it is verbal or substantive, because if we did, then people would score zero. We looked at your critical ability because you are still learning. So I want to see if you said, I think it's substantive, the reason you give is what was rewarded. And then if you say, no, I think it's verbal, I think that it is because of their perspective to the meaning of the word. I think that if we stipulated meanings, they could agree. It's critical thinking. So it's your critical ability that was rewarded, not the rightness or wrongness of the action, the answer.
Okay, madam.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on, please. I want to know that if you have questions on the content proper, it is very important to me. So I clarify before we build. Okay. So quickly. Unit 6. I said last week we discussed this deduction versus induction. How did we distinguish between the two? I've moved my slide from there. Oh dear, people, don't do that. When you do that, it becomes boring. We have discussed. Emmanuel, where are you? Your people should set up. Shulamite, go ahead.
Madam, please, good morning.
Good morning. It's now afternoon. Go ahead.
Afternoon, po. Okay.
Mm,
Madam, with the deductive, he said the premises are true and then the conclusion too is true. But the inductive, the premises can be true, but the conclusion wouldn't be true.
okay. Thank you. That's good. But there's a little correction I want to make. So for the deduction, we said if, the if is very important to us. That is, if the premises were true, then it will mean that the conclusion must also be true. It's a conditional relationship, okay? Not that they are actually true or actually false. So if the premises are true for a valid deductive argument, then its conclusion must also be true. That is it. Well done. Now let me ask, what are the types of valid deductive patterns you know of? Put up your hand, please. Abraham, say, go ahead.
Please, madam, we have 4 deductive valid forms.
Go ahead. There are more, but our textbook gave us only 4, which is fine. Go ahead, please.
Okay, madam, therefore, one is modus ponens.
Good.
And the second one is modus tollens.
Good.
And the third one is hypothetical syllogism.
Uh-huh.
And the last one is disjunctive syllogism.
Hey, are you a TA or something?
No, madam.
Thank you very much. So those are the 4. Can I have the alternative names for affirming that's of modus ponens and modus tollens and the others? So let's take Daniel Usu to do that. Thank you, Abraham. Daniel Usu, give us the alternative. If I don't want to say modus ponens, that's Paul. I could also say what, please?
Affirming the antecedent. That's
Excellent. How about tollens? Modus tollens.
negating the constituent.
Well done. Then we have the hypothetical syllogism and disjunctive syllogism. Very good. Now, sometimes when we are trying to do modus ponens, we mistakenly, we miss the step. And there is one that is very common. So it has also earned itself a name. That doesn't affirm the antecedent. It does something else. Miguel, the fallacy that tries to do modus ponens but does it wrongly is labeled as what, please?
Madam, negating the antecedent.
Okay, so negating the antecedent will be trying to do Modus tollens. You see that? Very good. How about if I was trying to do modus ponens, but I didn't do that well? Then I will commit which fallacy, Miguel?
Negating the consequence.
No, that will not be negating. If I negate the consequence, it will be valid.
Affirming
the consequence. Very good. Thank you very much. Well done. Then we also looked at what a syllogism is. I see very many hands up down. That's how I want the class to be. So Emmanuel Levinson, please could you tell me what a syllogism is? Or
Madam,
anybody
please.
else? Yeah, go ahead.
A syllogism is any deductive argument that has two premises and one conclusion.
Excellent. I won't add anything. Share. And go for a word. You will break my leg. In the IU, there will people have done Baba like that. Very good. I could say that in the space provided below, write any syllogistic argument and label it. And that may be for 2 marks. And who said, you get someone who say, hey, this syllogism, I think I saw it. Yeah, syllogism was in the thing. Syllogism, my friend, write any modus ponens argument. That's all. You have created a syllogism. If A, then B. A, therefore B. Finito. If you go and waste all the time going to write some complex statement, it will be correct, but you would have spent about 10 minutes on a question that you could have used 10 seconds to do. All A's are B's. X is an A, therefore X is a B. That's modus ponens. Finished. All A's are B's. X is not B, therefore X is not A. Finished. All boys play ampy. My lecturer does not play ampy. Therefore, my lecturer is not a boy. Valid. Modus tollens. You see, there is to be creative. You're a critical thinker. We are not testing your capacity at building strong, complex statement. No, we are checking your reasoning ability. So if I say assess, and there we go, assess the argument below from our discussions in Unit 6 on validity, for example, or I may not even qualify it from our discussion so far in the course. Assess the argument below. Then the argument says, every human being drinks water. My table is a human being. Therefore, it drinks water. Assess it. Assess it means examine, evaluate, mark it. Tell me what you think of it. Judge it. Okay? So all human beings drink water. My table is a human being. Therefore, it drinks water. Is that valid or not valid? If it is valid, is it sound or not sound? If it is not valid, why? I want an answer. All human beings drink water. My table is a human being, so my table drinks water. Assess it. Anybody, keep your hands up. Don't talk yet, please, okay? Just keep your hand up. I'm assessing the class. I want to know those who are, the number that are picking. Okay? Oh dear. Keep your hands up. Don't unmute your mic. I beg, respectfully. Thank you. Keep the hands up. Keep the hands up if you are able to do an assessment of what I've asked. All human beings drink water. My table is a human being, so my table drinks water. Only 4 people. It's not good though. Keep the hands up. Please, just keep it up so that I will choose the one I want to answer the question. Okay, so let me take Mario now. Very good. Mario, go ahead.
Okay, it is valid but not sound.
Excellent. Explain why. If you say it's valid, which pattern? If you say not sound, why do you say so?
It is valid.
Which pattern does it follow?
Modus ponens.
It's Paul, right? Ponens. Okay, that's
Yeah.
correct. Why is it not sound?
Because in reality, please.
Human beings, tables are not human beings. Yeah. That's all. Very good. Well done. So Let's practice now. Give me a valid conclusion to the following premises. I'll give you two premises and you give me a conclusion. So that is a syllogism already. Now, where I give you part of the argument and ask you to introduce the hidden part, what I would have given you would be an enthymeme. I'm sure you would have seen it already. Enthymeme. Spelled as if you are saying endymeme, but it is pronounced enthymeme. It's in the textbook. Enthymeme. Enthymeme. Okay. What is that? Oh, it is just that type of argument, maybe valid one, where you have a suppressed premise. You have hidden one of the premises. And yet we are able to detect it because it's a pattern. So if we know the beginning and we know the end, we can tell what the hidden one is, sort of, okay? So now let's work with that. I've increased the level of difficulty a little. We are revising and filling in gaps. I'll give you a premise and a conclusion. You tell me the hidden premise and tell me which pattern of validity led you to that hidden premise. Let us go. If you are my friend, remember that example, then you will tell me the truth. If you are my friend, then you will tell me the truth. This is the first premise. Now, there comes my conclusion, so that you tell me the hidden premise. If you are my friend, then you tell me the truth. Therefore, Nancy is not my friend. What's the hidden premise? I want a chorus answer now.
Therefore, Nancy.
Oh my.
Nancy did not tell me the truth.
Very good. Nancy did not tell me the truth. Nancy does not tell me the truth. Nancy shall not tell me the truth. Nancy is not telling me the truth. We are not interested in the past and present or future. It's the logic, the language, the negation here. So all of you are right when you say that from the premise, if you are my friend, then you will tell me the truth. If I concluded, therefore, Nancy is not my friend, then I have done something to the premises. What did I do? I negated the consequence. And therefore, it led me to this negation of the antecedent. This is a valid argument by modus tollens, Timothy, modus tollens. Very good. We increase it a little bit more. Right. What if the starting point is all women like pineapples? All women like pineapples. And then I conclude, therefore, JDM, John Dramani Mahama, likes pineapples. Full stop. All women like pineapple. I'm intentionally doing what I'm doing, so just follow. I want you to be rule inclined. Take away the emotions and you are doing logic, critical thinking. Okay, so all women like pineapples. Then I conclude, therefore, JDM, John Dramani Mahama, okay, likes pineapples. What's the hidden premise, all of us? I want a chorus
JD
answer.
is a
Mahama
woman.
is a woman.
Okay. Mate. Okay. So the hidden premise is X, whichever variable it is. That X is what? A woman. Now, oh, me there, people are too attached to things. So I like to use those examples to show you that validity may not necessarily be what? Soundness. So when we say it is valid, remember we said it the last time. It only means that if the premises were true. That's why I told Madam that I want her to bring the if. My sister who started for Ashulamite. If the premises were true, it means the premises may not be true, actually speaking. Like our friend told us when we talked about human beings, my table being a human being, say, oh, dog, it's valid, but it is not sound. Okay. So the same way here again, I gave you one premise and I gave you a conclusion. And by modus ponens valid reasoning pattern, you have been able to tell me what the hidden premise would have been. If the premises were true, then it would require that this conclusion necessarily follows. So here, if I asked you to assess, you would say, well, this is valid by modus ponens, but it is not sound, because that's why I didn't just say JDM, I put a name to it. John Dramani Mahama, who is the current president of the president ex of Ghana, is a woman, we will say, oh no, it's true. So then it is valid, but not sound. Very good. Now back to my slides. I want to make sure I've covered some good grounds with you. So this is slide number 1 in terms of content. The others are more outlines and then information. You know, deduction versus induction. You can tell what the difference between the premises and the conclusion of an argument is. This is fingertips. If you don't know this one, you are in deep trouble. You have to know how to distinguish an argument from the others. It's a straightforward matter, okay? Play on them over and over again. Given that, now tell me what the antecedent of this statement is. You will travel provided you have a passport. That's a conditional statement. This is an if-then statement. You will travel provided you have a passport. What's the antecedent? I want you to put up your hand. You see that I've not used if to help you easily identify where is the antecedent in class. You will travel provided you have provided you have a passport. Oh, excellent. The hands are up. Elizabeth Mate. Please go ahead.
Provided you have a passport.
Very good. So you don't include the provided. Because if you say provided you have a passport, I can't say true or false to that. So you just say you have a passport. That can be true or false. Very good. How did you know that that is the antecedent, sister?
Please, because it has because it's starting with provided.
Very good. Eduardo, you didn't do any magic. The provided is the reason. It looks like that which should happen so that the other one will follow. But look at where the provided was. It was in the middle. So that now the antecedent has become the second one rather. So it is not helpful when we are teaching you to say that the first part and the second part, it doesn't help you because sometimes, depending on how the person is speaking, the person may put the antecedent rather as second. So it is important for you to know antecedent and consequent based on the language. If you study, then you will pass. Antecedent is you study. Consequent, you will pass. Passing follows your study from the way I spoke. Now, if I said, if you studied, if you passed, then you studied, all of a sudden, the antecedent and consequent have changed position. If you studied, then you will pass. I've changed it. Now I'm saying that X studies becomes the antecedent because I said, if you passed, then you studied. I could say it 2 different ways, and immediately the antecedent and the consequent will change position. That's all I'm trying to say with a long talk. If I said it this way, if you study, then you will pass, the one we know. Then you study will be the antecedent. You passed will be the consequent. But I could have also said, if you passed, then it means you studied. If you passed, then it means you studied. It will still be what? You pass now becomes what? The antecedent, the if clause. The you studied becomes the consequent. If you have a passport, then you will travel. Antecedent, you have a passport. Travel, consequent. Okay. What if I said, if you traveled, then you did have a passport? They have changed positions. So it is important not to confuse antecedent with consequent. How will you know it? Don't think about it in everyday life. Look at the way the person is speaking. That is the first thing for validity. You look at how the person is speaking relative to the conclusion he is drawing. That is what deduction is. And that's why we said deduction is what? Topic neutral. It is neutral to the topic. All butterflies are angels. My frying pan is a butterfly. It will follow that my frying pan is an angel. Angel. Why are they? Yes, it will be valid. Modus ponens. Okay. More practice with the valid form. So write this down. If you do not pay your fees, if you do not pay your fees, you will not sit the exam. If you do not pay your fees, then you will not sit the exam. In other words, you will not be part of the exam. I want a modus tollens valid argument from this, using the name ATA. If you do not pay your fees, then you will not sit the exams. Modus tollens, Timothy, using the name ATA. We want a uniform answer. When you finish, put up your hand quickly. Two people now, quick. Keep putting your hands up. If you do not pay your fees, then you will not sit the exams. We want modus tollens. Nobody, no addition. Keep adding. Keep your hands up, please. Very good. Very good. Keep adding. Not that just raise your hand. Okay, so I think I can take Atapoku now. Atapoku Samuel, please go ahead. Give us a test. Ah, you are Ata? Okay, Atapoku, go ahead.
Ata will sit the exams if he pays his fees.
Ata will sit the exam. Therefore, Ata has paid his fees. Very good. Ata will sit. So after the main premise, if you don't pay, then you will not sit. The next premise you say, Ata sat for the exam. Therefore, Ata paid his fees. If I did this, I have negated the consequent first and concluded by negating the antecedent. It is modus tollens valid. As for soundness, I don't know how to check that. Soundness has to be clear because we want to check it against everyday life. All right, one more, I think, then we are ready to do hypothetical syllogism and disjunctive syllogism. Let's do the one that has universal negations in them. No planet orbits the sun. No planet goes around the sun. That's the universal statement given. If I gave you that, what is the consequent of that statement using the earth? No planet goes around the sun. No planet orbits the sun. If I asked you that question and I asked you what is the consequent of that statement, no planet goes around the sun, no planet orbits the sun. If I ask you that, what is the consequence? Use the earth so that we have a uniform answer. No planet orbits the sun. If you are confused or you've forgotten, look on your screen. I keep projecting when I ask you something. These things that we've done already. Are you ready to answer now? No planet. Oh dear. Where are you? If I said no man is perfect, it's on the screen. You open it out to read. If X is a man, then X is not perfect. So now I'm saying no man, no planet orbits the sun. I want just the consequence of that statement. Who is answering for me? I've seen all these hands. They've all answered the question. So I'm not able to call them yet. What is the antecedent of this statement using the earth? Christian Agose, go ahead.
Earth is not a planet.
Okay. What are you giving me now? Is it antecedent or consequent?
The consequent.
Okay, so open it out first so that we mark your work ourselves. Okay, I said no planet orbits the sun, Christian. So if I want to use if then to say what I've just said, how will I say it, Christian? Christian, you're muted. If I want to say what I said using if then, how will I say it? If I want to say the same thing, no planet orbits the sun, and I want to use a conditional to capture it, what would I say? Daniel Usu.
If Earth is a planet, then Earth does not orbit
the sun. Very good. If X is a planet, then the Earth does not orbit the sun. If the Earth is a planet, then the Earth does not orbit the sun. Now, when we write it this way, Christian, you see that we can easily see our consequent and antecedent. Okay, so how we've written it now, Christian, if you can still hear me, then what is the consequent of our statement now? Okay, let me hear Atapoku. Atapoku, can you hear me? Andrews Adai, go ahead. Yay, where is everyone? Is it network? We are a little slow today. Atapoku, what is the consequent now? Because Daniel has done the work. We are just identifying, or Andrews, are there any one of you?
Hello, madam.
Go ahead. What's the consequent?
So, madam, the Earth is a planet. Is the antecedent, please?
I want the consequent now. Thank you, Andrew.
The
But I want the
consequent,
consequent.
the Earth do not orbit the sun.
Very good. The Earth does not orbit the sun. Did not orbit the sun. Shall not orbit the sun. We just want the not. Okay. It's important to work on that so that you can easily open out a conditional statement, whether it is affirmative or it's a universal affirmative or it's a universal negative. So you can clearly identify antecedent and consequent. One more. If I said no humans have feathers, no humans have feathers. It's a universal negative, a universally negative statement. What is the antecedent of the statement? No humans have feathers. Miguel.
Using the example Amma. So if Amma is a human, to be the antecedent.
So you don't bring the if. Have you seen that? So you just say Amma is a student. Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. The same statement, then what will be the consequence? So Miguel just told us that if I say no human has feathers, I'm just saying if X is a human, then X has no feathers. With that, he can tell that the antecedent is Amma is a human. What will be the consequent? Perdita.
Please, madam, the consequence will be Amma has no feather or he has no feathers.
Very good. Amma has no feathers. Now that you know antecedent and consequent, and you have polished it up, whether with universal affirmative or negative, I want us to develop a modus tollens, Timothy, modus tollens valid argument from the premise, no man is mortal. I will ask for a uniform answer. So let's have a uniform response. No man is mortal. If I said no man is mortal, let's use Kofi. Let's develop a modus tollens, Timothy, valid argument together. We'll all say it together. No man is perfect. Hey, no man is mortal, and I'm kind. We're using Kofi and we want to develop modus tollens. What would the answer be? Go.
Coffee is not mortal.
He is not mortal.
Don't worry,
man
say
is
it. Keep saying it. I'm listening. So everybody say yours. I want to hear.
Kofi is not
Coffee
mortal.
is a
He
man.
is not mortal.
Yes, he is not mortal.
He is not mortal.
Kofi is not mortal.
Kofi is not mortal.
Therefore,
Kofi is not mortal.
Kofi is a human.
Kofi is not a man, therefore Kofi is not mortal.
some people are hating my song. People are hating me.
Kofi is
Some
not
people are
mortal.
putting
Therefore,
plenty salt
Kofi
in
is
my
not
soup.
Mortal.
Kofi is a
Therefore-
man, therefore Kofi is not mortal.
I want modus.
Kofi is a man.
Yeah, I'm crashing.
Kofi
Yeah.
is not mortal. Therefore, Kofi is
Okay.
a man.
Okay. It's, you know the chorus answer. Oh, you know that sometimes the chorus answers help me. It helps me know where to polish up, but sometimes students don't see. So when you give the feedbacks, at least about 60 to 70% we're getting it correct, but there is still some 30% that haven't gotten the form yet, and it's good that we did it that way. So listen, no man is mortal. That's the starting point. If we want to do modus ponens, Paul, that's not the question. But if we wanted to do modus ponens, we would have said Kofi is a man, therefore Kofi is not mortal. Because we opened out our universal statement and it read as what? If X is a man, then X is not mortal. That's how it will look like. When we expand it, it will be like that. If X is a man, then X is not mortal. Now, given our expanded form, we can easily do either an affirming of the antecedent modus ponens or a negating of the consequent. See? So we know our antecedent, we know our consequent. What we do with it is up to us, per the instruction. No man is mortal means if X is a man, then X is not mortal. That's where we got to. Then I'm saying that develop a modus tollens. Paul, hey, modus tollens is Timothy, where you negate. And so you start with a consequent before you conclude with a what? Antecedent. We are doing modus tollens now. From the starting point, if X is a man, then X is not mortal. What should we say next? We have to say X is mortal. Can you see why? Yes, because the original is X is not mortal. We are looking at the consequent now. Look on your paper. X is not mortal. That is what is given to us. And if we want to do tollens, we are instructed to negate the consequent. So if the original is negative, then its negation will become positive. So Kofi is mortal. And Rebecca first. Therefore, conclusion will be Kofi is not a man. Because the original antecedent is what? Kofi is a man. X is a man. Okay? What we are doing then is we are just following rules of deduction, valid deduction. If you were asked to do modus tollens, what should you do? Bring the given consequent first, but negate it. Then conclude with the given antecedent. Also what? Negated. That will be valid. If it came without negations, it even makes your work easier. All men are butterflies. That means if X is a man, then X is a butterfly. You want to do tollens, you bring the butterfly bit first, but negated. Yeah, you conclude with the man bit first, also negated. So all men are butterflies. X is not a butterfly. Therefore, X is not a man. That would have been valid. Modus tollens. Easy. The same thing is what we are doing with the second statement we are dealing with now, except that this second statement is a universal negation. So when you open it out, it already comes what? With a negation in the consequent. So it said, all men, no man is mortal. That is what? If X is a man, then X is not mortal. This is what is given. How do we then do our tollens? The same rule. Bring the consequent first, but do what? Negate it. Then conclude with what? The antecedent, and do what? And negate it. If you did that, it will still be valid. So we go and take our consequent first. What is the consequent? Remember, if X is a man, then X is not mortal. So the consequence is X is not mortal. So if we want to bring that first negated, we'll say X is mortal. X can represent any name, any variable. Kofi, Kwame, Kojo. Okay, so Kofi is mortal. Then we conclude, therefore, we are bringing the antecedent as the conclusion, but this time what? Negated. The original consequence is if X is a man. So X is a man, if you negate that, it will become, therefore, X is not a man. Let's practice with another one. Very good. If you do not, no, let's use the same pattern. If you get it, I shift it a little. So if you are my friend, then you will not lie to me. You see, if you know that you are not picking it that easily, write it down. Don't do alechon. Write. Find some pen and paper and write. Okay, so you can see the antecedent and consequent, and then you do the negation and all that. So be writing. I said, if you are my friend, then you will not lie to me. What's the antecedent? All of us.
If you are my friend, you
X
will
is
not
my
lie.
friend.
If you are my
X is
friend,
my friend.
You are my friend.
Don't add the if
Or
and
you are
the
my
then.
friend.
They are just pointers. So you are
you are
my
my
friend
friend.
is
You are
the
my.
antecedent. Very good. What is the consequent, please?
You will not lie to me.
You will not
Will
lie
not
to me.
lie to me. Very good.
You will not like me.
Very good. Keep it there. We are going to keep it. We'll use it shortly. Put it in the fridge. Let me ask you the next question. So identify antecedent and consequent because it's important to get that. So what about if I had said all women like babies? Mbappe Mofra. All women like babies. What is the consequence of this statement? Let's use Amma.
Amma like baby.
Very good. Very good.
Amma like baby.
Don't do therefore anything. We are just opening it out to know our antecedent and consequent. That's all. We haven't started reasoning with it yet. Okay. So I just ask for the consequent. All women like babies. If I ask for the consequent, you say Amma likes babies. Good. Another example. Still identify antecedent and consequent. No student cheats. No student cheats. What is
Students do
the
not cheat.
antecedent? Hold on. What is the antecedent of the statement? No student cheats. What
X
is the
is a student.
X is a student. Very good. If you write student, you get it wrong. I have questions that look like that. There's been such questions in the past. Where we write the statement, tell you what is the antecedent. If you write student, student is not antecedent. Antecedent has to be a full statement. It should be something that can be true or false. Okay. Just that the student is the key thing there. So if I say no student cheats, and I ask you what is the antecedent, remember how you open it out. If X is a student, then X does not cheat. So the antecedent is X is a student. That can be true or false. If I say student, you say true or false to it. But I think I get your drift. You are emphasizing the key thing there. So if I say no student cheats and I ask you what is the antecedent, antecedent is X is a student. What's the consequent? Consequent is what, please?
X do not cheat.
X does not cheat. Very good. And the very last one, still on identifying antecedent and consequent. It is on your screen for those who would need to see what they are thinking. See, some people think that way. They are better able to grasp things when they are looking at it and listening and doing. So I project it as well. Suppose I said, no man is perfect. No man is perfect. What is the consequent using Kojo? All of us.
Kojo is not perfect.
Kojo is not perfect.
Very good. Kojo is not perfect. So now you know how to find antecedent and consequent. Whether you are using universal affirmative statement or you are using universal negative statement. If it comes as an if then it's even easier for you. As a conditional statement, if then that is even easier for you because you're already exposing its antecedent and consequent. But if it doesn't, and it comes as a universal statement, whether universal positive or universal negative, you know how to find your way around opening it to read as what? A conditional, so that you can tell your antecedent and your consequent. Look on your screen. I could have said Ghanaians are hospitable. What would be the consequent for a statement like that? Ghanaians are hospitable.
Ghana is a hospital.
X is a Ghanaian.
Hey.
X is hospitable.
X hospitable.
Ghanaians are not hospitable.
See how the gentleman said, hey, he himself said, hey. Okay, and S is hospitable is the consequent. Very good. Now, what about example 2 on up there? This one under universal affirmative. If I say Christians worship on Sundays, then I said Kofi is a Christian. What have I captured? Antecedent or consequent, please?
Antecedent.
Antecedent.
Oh, Christians worship on Sundays. Then I said Kofi is a Christian. What have I captured? Antecedent or
Antecedent.
consequent?
Antecedent.
Okay. Alcoholics are womanizers. Watch. I'm on the third one now. Watch. You keep watching. Alcoholics are womanizers. If I said Emmanuel is not a womanizer, what have I done?
Consequence.
You have negate the consequence.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Maybe I word or say, you have negated the what do you call friend say? Holiday. You should be eating fufu and appointing kaka. Look at you, are doing consequent and affirmative. Well, okay. So if I say alcoholics are womanizers, and the next premise says Emmanuel is not a womanizer, what I've done is negated the consequence. Very good. If I conclude and say, therefore, Emmanuel is not an alcoholic, I would have generated a very valid argument called what? Modus what? Paul or Timothy?
Modus tollens.
Tolerance.
I said Paul or Timothy.
Timothy.
Because from a distance, sometimes I don't hear the ponens and the tollens. Some people say ponens and tonens and pollens and pollens. No, they are frat. So it would have been what? Modus tollens. Well done. Ghanaians approve of same-sex marriage. Watch. I'm going to trick you. Follow me slowly. I'm trying to help you refresh your memory. So I keep switching from one to the other quickly. You don't see it. But if you are watching, then you know that you are doing well. Okay. So see, I said Ghanaians approve of same-sex marriage. Then see what I'm doing in the next premise and tell me or assess it. Okay. Ghanaians approve of same-sex marriage. Otele approves of same-sex marriage. Therefore, I conclude that Otele is Ghanaian. What have I done? Evaluate it. Ghanaians approve of same-sex marriage. Okay.
Hypothetical syllogism.
We have not learned hypothetical. I want to see anything hypothetical until we are done. We'll do that shortly. See, Ghanaians approve of same-sex marriage. Watch. The next premise says, Otele approves of same-sex marriage. What have I done?
You have affirmed the consequence.
Very good. There's a gentleman who quickly answers the question, and he gets them correct all the time. Ghanaians approve of same-sex marriage. Otele approves of same-sex marriage. What have I done, please?
You affirmed the consequence.
The one who just spoke is the one I'm referring to. Who is this? What's your name, please?
It's me, Mario.
Mario. Well done. You're doing
Yes.
very well. Please, if you need help, call Mario. He will help you. Okay? For this one, Kwade, because all the answers given so far, I think his microphone is also a bit loud, so I hear him clearly. He doesn't air. Sometimes people bring salt and come and put in our soup, though. But we are all learning, okay? The young too shall grow. Otele approves of same-sex marriage would be you are affirming the consequent. If we affirm the consequent, which fallacy are we committing? Oh, what have I answered my question? We have affirmed the consequent. We are committing the fallacy of affirming the consequent. That is not done. Okay. This is what we see. All the practice we were doing was to take us to this one.
Madam,
The
I'm
valid
getting
part. You shouldn't get confused. We are just revising what we know already. Okay, so here we are on our screen now. We have the types of valid patterns. We have revised, antecedent, and consequent. So you know why we call modus ponens argument as what? The argument that affirms the antecedent. It's on your screen now, look. Then we call modus tollens the argument that negates the consequent. And they are both what? Valid. That's what we did last week. Now, on your screen, keep looking and please be quiet so that you don't get confused. Okay, be quiet. Look on the thing. When you have an answer or ask for answers, then you give it. Now I'm saying that for modus ponens on the screen now, we say all mangoes are fruits. Next premise, this thing is a mango. So we are able to conclude that it is a fruit. Why? Because when we said all mangoes are fruits, what we did next, look on the screen, please, was to do what? To affirm the antecedent, all mangoes. Look at it. We said this thing is a mango. So we are affirming what is true of what? The antecedent. That is why when we finish and we conclude, so it is a fruit, this reasoning will be valid. That validity is a special type called affirming the antecedent. All women like money. Nancy is a woman, so she likes money. That will be valid by what? Modus ponens, because I affirmed the antecedent. Now, if I say all mangoes are fruit, this thing is a fruit. So we should conclude, therefore, that it is a mango. What did I do? That was what I was asking over there. All mangoes are fruit. Then the next premise, I say this thing is a fruit. Watch, this thing is a fruit. What would I have done? Peggy Dakwa.
The consequence.
I would have affirmed the consequent. We don't do that. This is the point. If you do that, your reasoning will be invalid. So where you are trying to do modus ponens, which is affirming something, but instead of affirming the antecedent here, the premises here, like we are doing on the screen now, you rather go and affirm the consequent. You generate the fallacy called affirming the consequent fallacy. Look on your screen again. I've gone to the fallacy slide. So see, you say all x's are y's. This thing, see what the person is saying. This thing is a y. Y represents statement. X represents statement. You say this thing is a y, so we should conclude that it is an x. No, it doesn't follow. When you say this thing is a y, it's the consequent that you have affirmed. Can you see that? Please, can you see it, class?
Yes, please, we can see.
Very good. Very good.
Yes, we can see.
I thought I was not audible in longer. Very good. So that is why you see the arrow here. That's what generates the fallacy. The same way, if you do it right and you said all x's are y's, this thing is an x. You would have affirmed the antecedent. So you say, therefore, it is a y. Then we will say it is valid. That would have been the correct version, affirming the antecedent, which is also called modus ponens. Very good. What about if you had said, now we are going to tollens, revising our tollens, then we'll go to hypo, okay? All x's are y's. Modus tollens is also called denying, I've changed the slide again, or negating the consequent. After we said all mangoes are fruit, what we did next was to say this thing is not a fruit. A negation of the consequence. See, want to bring the consequent first, then you have to negate it. It's like saying he was first from the bottom. If you don't say he was first from the bottom and you just say he was first, we will think that you say he topped the class. But you could say he was first, however, from the bottom, and we'll understand that he was last. So if you want to bring the consequent rather first, then you have to introduce a negation. That's the rule for modus tollens, which is also a valid way of speaking, called denying the consequent or negating the consequent. So all mangoes are fruit. The next premise, this thing is not a fruit. Then you can conclude, then it is not a mango. That will be valid. Now, the negative one, the fallacy for that one is what you see on your screen. All x's are y's. If look at your screen now. If I wanted to do ponens, modus ponens, from all x's are y's, what should I say next? This thing is what?
Yes.
It's an x.
It's X.
Very good. Therefore,
This thing is Y.
This
then
thing
that
is
would
y.
have been valid. Very good. That would have been valid by what? Modus ponens. Okay. If you want to do tolerance, what should you have said? I've intentionally moved it from that screen and I'm asking you. If I wanted to do tolerance, after saying all x's are y's, what should I say next?
This thing is not a Y.
It's not a
It's
Y.
not a Y.
Very
This
good.
thing,
Therefore,
this thing is not an
It is
X.
not an X.
very good. That would have also qualified as a valid pattern, modus tollens. But this our friend on the screen here is doing not, which suggests that he wants to do tollens, which introduces not here and not here. But he's not doing it well. Instead of negating the consequent rather first, look at the arrow pointing to the problem. He doesn't negate the consequent rather first. He has gone to negate the antecedent, and he's expecting that because he has negated the antecedent, it should mean that the consequent will also be negated. And we say no, that doesn't follow necessarily. Because of the meaning of the universal statement here, the starting point says all x's are y. That means all x's are inside the set of y's. All politicians are corrupt. Doesn't mean that all corrupt people are politicians. No. If I say all politicians are corrupt, it means the circle is inside the big rectangle of what? Corrupt people. The circle of politicians are inside the big rectangle of what? Corrupt people. But I tell you that inside that same rectangle, there's a triangle of corrupt people who are also what? Lecturers. So they are lecturers, but they are inside the set of corrupt people. So all politicians are corrupt doesn't prevent all lecturers from also being corrupt. Corruption is the big set. So here in our example, Y is the big set, and inside the set of Y is a small set, a subset called X. That means it is possible for her to have another subset called A or W, still inside the set of Y, okay? So that if someone is not inside this subset called X, not X means outside of X, a negation of X. You can't therefore say that it means a negation of the big set Y. No, a person can be outside of the small set circle, a circle inside the big Venn diagram, and yet still be in the Venn diagram, but this time inside the triangle, which is also inside the Venn diagram. That's the logic behind it. I'm trying to explain to you. So when you negate the antecedent, we are not obliged necessarily by force to conclude, therefore, that there is what? A negation of the bigger set Y. No, I can be outside of the circle, which is, you see that the circle is inside the big rectangle. I can be outside of that circle and still be in the rectangle. Okay, so outside of politicians and yet still inside the set of corrupt people because perhaps I'm a lecturer and I'm also corrupt. That's the meaning of all x's are y's. One is a subset, the other is a mother set. So a negation of the subset doesn't necessarily mean a negation of the mother set. I could be outside of the subset and still be inside the mother set. So if you insist that because I'm outside of the small set, which is the subset, therefore it means that I'm outside of the big set, we tell you that you are committing an error in the way you are reasoning. Very good. All Ghanaians are, or Ghana is in West, I don't even know how to get, Ghana is in West Africa. Yes, doesn't mean West Africa is in Ghana. I know this. Ghana is in West Africa, doesn't prevent Togo also from being in West Africa, or Nigeria also from being in West Africa. You see? So if you say Ghana is in West Africa, then your next premise says Nancy is not in Ghana, a negation of Ghana. Therefore, you say, this should help you. Therefore, you say Nancy is not in West Africa. It's a big, big error in the way you are thinking. Why being so? Because Nancy may be outside of Ghana, but still be in West Africa because West Africa is bigger. It's the consequence. And then what? Ghana is the antecedent, the X here. That is the logic, the reasoning behind the fallacy here. So the correct one, which is the modus tollens, says what? If you say all X's are Y's, the next premise we are looking for, the information we need to draw a valid conclusion is when you further tell us that, oh, this thing is not even a Y, okay? So all Ghanaian or Ghana, all Ghana, whatever, is in West Africa. They tell us that Nancy is not even in West Africa, not why. Then we can conclude that if she's not in West Africa, then she cannot be in Ghana. Because Ghana is West Africa. Ghana then West Africa. You see, the Ghana is inside the West Africa. So all Ghanaians are in West Africa. All X's are Y's. If you tell us that this thing is not a Y, then we can confidently conclude that it is therefore not an X. That one is valid. Tolerance. But if you say all X's are Y's, this thing is not an X, so we should conclude therefore that it is not a Y. It is not valid. It is called denying or negating the antecedent. Very good. Now we can go to the third valid part, unless there's a question, which I'll help you clarify. The third one we are going to look at, which I'm sure you would have done your homework on, is what? Hypothetical syllogism. Hypothetical syllogism. Hypo, to hype it. Now, what is the pattern for hypothetical syllogism? Remember, it is also valid, but the validity there is not the same as modus tollens, and it is not the same as modus ponens. First clue, note that all the three premises are universals. All this are that, all that are that, therefore all that are that. Look at the three steps, all the three statements are all universals. When I say they are universals, they can be universal affirmative or universal negative, remember. And when I say universals, we have already learned that universals are disguised conditionals. It means that they could be conditionals throughout. If this, then that. And if that, then those. Therefore, if this, then those. You know, if then, if then, if then. For all the three premises. The three statements, two premises and a conclusion. All of them are universals or conditionals throughout. See, that wasn't the case when we did modus ponens and modus tollens. Modus ponens started with all so and so, but the next premise was not an all so and so anything. The next premise is a particular statement. That was the reason why I introduced particular in general to you in the slides. Okay, this one says this thing is a mango, X is a mango. Okay, after the main premise. As for hypothetical, all mangoes are fruits. The next one too, all these are done. The conclusion to so all these are this. That's the nature of hypothetical syllogism. First clue. Now, if you see that there is all, or if then, or no, this have done this, and no, that have done, therefore, no, this have done, there is a good sign that there is hypothetical syllogism there. But you need an extra information to confirm that. What else should you look out for? Now, look at the pattern with this example. All mangoes are fruits. The next premise then says, all fruits are edible. And I'm saying that you start with saying all mangoes are fruits. So all mangoes are fruit. The fruit here is the consequent. Now you know it. When I say the consequent, X is a fruit, you see, is the consequent. But the next premise of this same argument, the fruit, which was a consequent here, is an antecedent now. All fruits are edible. Then, because there's a common factor, the thing is a consequent here and it is still an antecedent here, you can cross it out safely. There's no problem. Then you can conclude, therefore, that all mangoes are edible. So let's do it. Let's work it together. All mangoes are inside the set of fruits. Valid. And all fruits are themselves inside the set of edible things. Then it has to follow that all mangoes are already inside edible things. All mangoes are edible. That's the pattern for hypothetical syllogism. Easy. All planets orbit the sun. All things that orbit the sun breathe. Then it will mean that all planets breathe. All humans feed their youngs. All who feed their youngs are mammals. Then it means all humans are mammals. All A's are B's. And all B's are themselves what? C's. Then it means that all A's are C's. That's the pattern for hypothetical syllogism. if you want to do this hypothetical syllogism and you mistakenly go and do this, there we go, it's on the screen. Look on your screen now. The fact that, let me help you see it, Kwa. So if I started all x's are y's, look at the variables are x, y, and z. X, y, and z, 3 sets. Now, if I started with all x's are y's, what would have been a valid hypothetical syllogism? Because we have 3 variables.
All y's are z.
All y's
All
are
y's
z's.
are z. Very good. That's how it should have been. All y's are z's. So that we can then say that, therefore, all x's are z's, because the y's would have crossed out. But this yours truly here, who is doing this work, Alecho, starts and says all x's are y's, leaves the y there, and comes and starts another thing. All z's or z's are also y's. So he's saying, therefore, that all x's are z's. And we tell him no, sir, or no, ma'am. The fact that 2 things, antecedent conditions, see, 2 antecedent conditions lead to a common consequent doesn't mean those 2 antecedent conditions are the same. Remember, this is antecedent leading to a consequent. The second one too, this is an antecedent leading to a consequent. The fact that those 2 antecedent conditions lead to the same consequence doesn't mean those 2 antecedent conditions are the same, or one gives rise to the other. No. Okay? If you eat so much salt, you may get heart attack. And if someone told you a bad news, it could give you heart attack. Does it mean that eating salt gives rise to getting bad news? No. Not even in real life, per se, but the logic of it, because we can put variables there. So if I said all women like rich men, and all who like rich men die early. Hey, you there. I intentionally give those examples. I'm telling you, so that you don't stress yourself with thinking. Just look at the pattern. All women like rich men. All who like rich men die early. What am I saying then? I'm saying that all women die early by hypothetical syllogism is valid. Is it sound? I don't think so. Because observation doesn't show that all women like rich men. In fact, some like poor men, especially when they are rich, so that they will sit on the man's neck and dictate to him and show him when he should wake up and when he should sit down, and so on and so forth. So it's not the content we are looking at, it's topic neutral. I intentionally use those examples, so your attention will be more on what? The logic of it, the pattern, because we are doing deduction. When we do induction in Unit 7, the method changes. Here we are using the rules, Keke. It's just the rules that you are applying. So on that note, I think we have killed hypothetical syllogism too well. Now, this one, where you say because they all meet at the same offending consequence, therefore, you conclude all X as Z. We say it is a false hypothetical syllogism. Ask me your questions if you have any. From modus ponens and tollens to hypothetical syllogism. Ask all questions. I see 2 hands up. I see Emmanuel's hand, Emmanuel Lovinson's hand, and Peggy Dakwa. Go ahead if you have a question.
Manage your life for
No problem. Okay, Peggy, your hand is up. Is there a question, please? Peggy Dakwa. Your hand is still up, so I don't know if it's a question. If it's an error, then we continue.
Madam, please, no.
Okay. Then I'll lower your hand for you. So we'll go over quickly. Let's see if we have captured the first 3 very well. Then I'll top up with the very last, baby last. That one is not very difficult. Modus ponens, modus tollens, hypothetical syllogism. Let's practice with an enthymeme. I'll give you a premise and a conclusion And then so far, we've done 3 of the valid patterns. We know the invalid forms. Sometimes I could give you the complete argument and ask you to assess it. Then you would tell me this is valid, for example, but not sound, or valid and sound, or invalid because it is affirming the consequent, or invalid because it is denying the antecedent, or invalid because it commits the false hypothetical syllogism pattern, and stuff like that. That's how you learn. Some of them I can give premise and ask you to, premise and conclusion and ask you to introduce the hidden premise, or I could give you the 2 premises and ask for the conclusion that will make it a valid syllogism and which valid pattern it is and why, and stuff like that. See, Unit 6 alone can form more than 3,000 questions for the whole group. So let's practice a little. Now, suppose I gave you this n-termine and asked you to introduce the hidden premise and tell me the valid pattern. Remember, it is not always that you will have affirmative statements, universal affirmative. Sometimes it could be universal negations. Don't stress. When you are given that universal statement, just open it out, expand it, so that you can clearly see your antecedent and consequent. That's all. And obey the rule to the letter. Okay. So 1, write it down, please. All oh dear. All men, my other example, I forgot it today. All men are bullies. Therefore, my table is not a man. Tell me the hidden premise, if it is valid, which pattern of validity, and then whether it is sound. I may not ask you all this. I may just tell you, complete the argument below and evaluate it. So all men are bullies. My table is not, oh, Mama will answer. My table is not a man. I've just given the answer. That couldn't be correct. What I said earlier was, all men are bullies. Therefore, my table is not a man. All men are bullies. Therefore, my table is not a man. That's what I gave you. Okay. Please work it and complete it with a hidden premise and tell me which valid pattern it is and whether it is sound or not. Let's go step by step. So what is the hidden premise, please? I see only one hand up. Should I say it again?
It's not a man.
Please, should I say everything again? Maybe some didn't get it. I said all men are bullies. That's the starting point. All men are bullies. Therefore, my table is not a man. Then I'm asking you to give me the hidden premise first. So let's start with that one. If you get it, put up your hand. The hidden premise. I see 3 hands. Keep your hand coming. Don't answer yet. Some need a little more time. So all men are bullies. Therefore, my table is not a man. Keep coming. Very good. I still see some hands. A few more, and we can answer. All men are bullies. Therefore, my table is not a man. Okay. Now we can ask someone to answer. I wish we'll get a new hand, but so far, everyone speaking here has spoken. Okay, so I think I have a new, oh, Michael, put your hand down. I was going to call you. Emmanuel J. And okay, 2 hands have been spoken. Let's take Emmanuel J then. Where is Emmanuel J? Okay, Osei Michael, you were editing your name. Osei Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, madam, please, if S is a man, then S is also a bully.
Okay, so I gave you an argument. I just want the hidden premise, that's all. Just the hidden premise, don't expand it. Just tell me what the hidden premise. So I started by saying, hold on, please, my lady. I want everyone to follow, that's why. Otherwise, only 2 people who understand will hijack the whole class. Meanwhile, maybe a majority still are struggling a little. Okay, so let's do it that way. I started by saying, all men are bullies. Then I concluded, therefore, my table is not a man. Okay, Now I'm asking you to tell me what is the hidden premise? Which one did I suppress? Which other premise didn't I state? But it still helped me to conclude. Therefore, my table is not a man. What's the premise? Michael,
I don't get that one.
please let Michael talk. Michael say, please go ahead.
Madam, that one, I don't understand.
Very good. Don't worry. That's why we are here. So others will help you out. Please listen to Perdita. Perdita, go ahead.
Okay, madam, please. The hidden premises is that my table is not a
My table is what? I just didn't hear you. My table is not a what? Please, Perdita, you are muted.
Please, my table is not
A bully. Very good. My table is not a bully. Therefore, my table is not a man. Okay? Say Michael.
Yes,
Why?
madam.
That helps. Now, which pattern of reasoning would that be? Is it Timothy or Paul? I want a chorus answer. Timothy or Paul?
Timothy.
Modus.
That's modus tollens. Very good. It's modus tollens because after the main premise, the gentleman negated the consequent. And then Madam helped us. Madam negated the consequent. And our brother arrived at what? The negation also of the antecedent. That's modus tollens. So if I asked you to evaluate, would we say this is valid? Yes, it is. But is it sound? Perhaps not. Because as soon as you make a universal statement, it's difficult to factually ground it. If you say all men are this, all women are that, some of them may not be very troublesome, but some could be. So you are careful. Like if you say all men are bullies, in other words, all men cheat or they bully they huna people. You know. If I said that, it is difficult to ground it, so it will not be sound. Okay, the second one. Now the universal statement whose antecedent and consequent we put down earlier when we were working. If you are my friend, remember we wrote it down, then you will not lie to me. Develop a modus ponens argument from that. Let's use Amma. If you are my friend, then you will not lie to me. What's the next premise? All of us.
Amma is my friend.
Amma is my friend.
If you are my friend, then you will not lie to me. You are using Amma to do modus ponens. Paul, I want a uniform answer, please. Go ahead.
Amma
is my friend.
Amma is my friend.
You will not. She will not lie to me.
Very good.
Amma will not lie to
Very
me.
good. Very good. Amma is my friend. Therefore, she will
Amma
not lie to me. Amma will not lie to me. This not, we didn't put it there. It was given to us. So we haven't done modus tollens. We just did modus ponens. Okay.
Madam,
Now the same, sorry. Yeah.
So please, if you say Amma is my friend, she will not. Therefore, she will not lie to me. Is it the same as Amma is my friend? Therefore, Amma will not lie to me.
Yes, it's correct. In fact, you should say it the second way. How you said the second, where you repeat the Amma, because it's a variable. Okay. Now we are going to we are going to start with the same premise, but this time we are going to develop modus tollens. Let's go. I said let's go. Somebody do it because it's a little cumbersome. So I can say, if you are my friend, then you will not lie to me. Using Amma, we want to do tollens. And I said it can be quite cumbersome. So put up your hand, please, so that I'll call you for others to benefit if they are confused. Hey, these four people have been talking. So as for Lavinson, I've stopped calling him. Miguel too, I'm not calling. Abraham Kra, Atapu, you have spoken. Mario, you have spoken. Mawena.
Madam.
Yeah. Go ahead, my lady.
Amma is not my friend. Amma lies to me.
Okay, Mawenasi, let's do it slowly. Look at what I said. If you are my friend, then you will not lie to me. If friend, then not lie. Now, we know antecedent to be the friend part and consequent to be what? Not lie. That's what is given. If friend, then not lie. Antecedent, friend. Consequent, not lie. Now we are going to do modus tollens. And modus tollens tells you how you should do it. Tells you that negate the consequent in the premises. Negate the consequent. Then you can conclude by negating the antecedent. We understand what it means to negate. Turn what is given to you upside down in terms of truth value. That's all. So we are starting. If friend, then not lie.
Okay.
What should we say next if you are doing modus tollens, my dear sister? That is where we are.
So Amma lied to me. Therefore,
Very
she
good.
is my friend.
Therefore, she is.
She's not my friend.
Very good. Did you see what we just did? It is rules. Nothing. It's just rules. Rules. So if you follow it like that, you make a mistake. The earlier response you gave was not valid. It denied the antecedent. You said, Amma is not my friend. Therefore, she lied to me. You have negated both, yes, but you started with the antecedent rather, and you concluded with the consequent, and that is not valid. So the correct one, like Madam has just done, is when I say, if you are my friend, then you will not lie to me. That's how I started. If that's what I said, and I said, I want you to do tollens. If friend, then not lie to me. What you say next is, lied to me, therefore not friend. Valid. Last one.
Yes,
And I do,
please.
okay, well done. I'm going to do another example. Assess the following argument for me. Politicians are corrupt, and lecturers are also corrupt. So obviously, politicians are lecturers. Valid or not? If valid, why? If not valid, why? I say it again. Politicians are corrupt. I'm saying it again, yes. Politicians are corrupt. Lecturers are corrupt. Therefore, politicians are lecturers. Assess it. And I say, if you hear assess or evaluate or examine, you are supposed to tell us, is it valid or not valid? If valid, is it sound or not sound? And why? That kind of thing. That's what assessment is. So I want someone to help us. Is it valid or not? Politicians are corrupt. Lecturers are also corrupt. Therefore, politicians are lecturers.
Valid. Yeah,
Is it valid or not valid? Just say
Valid.
valid.
Not valid.
Not valid.
Okay, if you think it's valid, put up your hand. I think that helps. If you think it's valid, put up your hand. Those whose hands were up already, I see how they are rush. Hey, are you going to put up your hand? It is not valid. Very good. There were a few hands that were already up. I see how they rush to go and put it down. It is not valid. This one is committing the fallacy called what? All of us.
Hypothetical syllogism.
Is the false hypothetical syllogism. Very good. The two of them converge at the same place. They have the same consequent. Doesn't mean that you can now say, therefore, that one leads to the other. No, the antecedent of these two statements. So what did the person say? Politicians are corrupt. And lecturers are also corrupt. Therefore, politicians are lecturers. it is not valid. Now check this one too, and let me see if you see the pattern. Then we can move to disjunctive syllogism and rest. All politicians are corrupt. And all who are corrupt are lecturers. Therefore, all politicians are lecturers. Is this valid or not? So evaluate or assess. All of us, valid or not?
Valid.
It's
Valid.
not valid.
Valid.
It's valid.
It is
Valid.
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 Not valid.
Can you see why it is valid?
Valid.
Yes. Is it
Yes.
sound?
Yes.
It is not valid.
Yes.
No,
No.
not sound.
It's
Is
not
it
valid.
It's not
sound?
sound.
It
No.
is not sound.
Yes.
Very good. Okay. Why not say yes? Yes to the validity. Yes, it's valid, but no, it is not sound.
Not sound.
You see that? Why? Because lecturers are not necessarily politicians. If you say lecturers are politicians, it means that every lecturer you see must be a politician or in that regard. So look at the 3 steps. And it's not even true that all politicians are corrupt. It's not true. And it's not true that all lecturers are corrupt. So this universal statement, sometimes it's difficult to establish soundness with them. Now, if you got that, then we are ready to do some disjunctive syllogism and end.
So please,
And when
if
you
all
go for
I have a
tutorial,
question.
sorry, do you have a
madam,
question? Is there a
yeah,
question? Oh, please go
yeah.
ahead.
So
Who is
please,
this?
if all
Is it
Yeah.
Carl? Who is asking the question?
Michael,
Please go ahead,
Miguel,
Michael.
Miguel also has a question.
please, madam. So if all politicians are not corrupt and then all lecturers are not corrupt, it makes it a valid right.
It's just a pattern. So if I had said all politicians, no, the validity is just with the patterns. When you
Okay.
establish that it is valid first, then you can go ahead and check the truth of the premises to help you tell whether it is sound or not.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So as soon as it is not valid, you can't even ask whether it is sound or not. Whether true
Oh,
premises or not, it will not be sound.
okay.
Okay. Miguel, you
That's
said
it.
you also had a question. Go ahead, please.
Yes, please.
Madam,
The
I
one with
Yo,
the example we did before this one, and that
please.
one was politicians are corrupt.
Yes.
Lecturers are also corrupt. So
Yes.
politicians are lecturers.
Yes.
What about
That's a
if
false. It's false hypothetical syllogism. Yeah.
yes. So the consequence. What about if we say, therefore, both politicians and lecturers are corrupt? Is it
It is still
valid?
not. It is still no. That one will not be hypothetical syllogism. We can test for validity, but we are not teaching you that. Otherwise, then we'll be doing element of formal logic proper. We can test for validity. There are ways of checking. But here we are just showing you hypothetical, the 4 valid patterns. So even if it is valid, if I checked, I could check quickly and tell you. It wouldn't follow the patterns that you have been given to study. Do you understand?
Yes, please.
So it is not a hypothetical syllogism, even if it were valid. There are a lot of valid patterns. Constructive dilemma is there, addition, simplification, conjunction. They are all different ways of deducing validly. Okay, Copy's rules. So the textbook gives you only 4. And the one that you have just done, where the conclusion conjoins, it says both P and Q are corrupt. I could just check. I could just do a deduction. There's a way to do it. You negate the conclusion and decompose and see if the branch will close or that to tell you whether it's valid or not. But that would be, even if it were valid, it wouldn't follow the hypothetical syllogism valid pattern, which you are required to know. Okay. So those are the ones that we are focusing on now. All right. I saw a hand. There was a lady's hand up. I don't know if you are sorted. I saw a hand before Abdurazak. Abdurazak, ask your question, please. It was Benedicta, I think. Razak, ask your question, unless it's sorted. Then please ask your question. Benedicta Sari Bediako. Ajimai. Hey, Bene, do you say me?
Madam.
Go ahead.
Madam, so are you saying all politicians are corrupt and all politicians are lecturers? Therefore, all lecturers are corrupt. Are you saying it's valid?
Say it again. Let's follow together. The class will listen. So the first one, he said, All politicians are
All
corrupt.
politicians are corrupt. And
Yes. Then the
all
second premise.
politicians are lectures.
Mhm.
Therefore, all lectures are corrupt. You are saying it's valid, right?
No, that is not valid. That's not what we said.
No.
You see
Madam,
that your
why?
first, that one is not valid. See, you said all politicians are corrupt. Then you left corrupt there and came to say what?
All politicians are lectures.
You see what you just said. So you started with politicians at the top. The second premise, politician is still an antecedent. Can you see that?
Okay.
So we said that before you can cross out, there has to be that word that you want to cross out must be an antecedent in the first premise and a consequent in the second. Then it can cancel itself out because it can't be the referee and the player at the same time. That's why you're able to take it out. So if I said all politicians are corrupt, then the next premise says all corrupt people are lecturers. Can you see it now? Then,
Yes,
then
madam.
here, no, corrupt is consequent. The second one is antecedent. So it can cancel itself out so that we can now say then, therefore, all politicians are lecturers. That will be valid. Do not sound.
Okay. Madam, please. What
Yeah.
is all politicians are corrupt?
Mhm.
And all corrupt people are lectures. Therefore,
Yes.
all lectures are corrupt.
No, that will also not be correct because antecedent is not the same as consequent. If I say all
Okay.
politicians are corrupt, I haven't said all corrupt people are politicians. So you can't change their positions. So the beginning one has to be the antecedent, and then the concluding one has to be the consequent. Okay.
Okay, madam, please listen to the last one.
No,
All
don't worry.
politicians, all
Go ahead, don't
politicians
worry,
are
Graham.
corrupt.
Mhm.
And all politicians are corrupt. And all corrupt people are lectures. Therefore, all politicians are corrupt. That one is valid.
It's totally not valid. Say it again. See yourself. Let's start together. Go. All politicians are corrupt.
All politicians are corrupt.
Then the next
And
one says
all
all
corrupt
corrupt people
people are
are
lectures.
lectures. Yes. So we want your
Therefore,
conclusion now. Mhm.
therefore, all politicians are corrupt.
But corruption, they are crossing it out. We crossed it out because it is consequent based and
Okay, so
antecedent.
all
So it's out.
politicians are lectures.
Yes. Per the given
Okay,
premises, that will be valid. Yeah. Okay.
okay,
This
I
thing say if we are working,
okay.
thank you, but if we're working in maths, I mean on the board, and I would have just plotted them for you yourself to see. The first one that says all politicians are corrupt, I tried to create a mental image for you. If you drew it with a Venn diagram, it would be the circle of politicians. A circle labeled P will be inside, say, a triangle labeled what? Corrupt. So a circle of politicians P inside the triangle of what? Politicians. Or what did we say? All politicians are corrupt. So all P are inside C. Then the next premise says all C. That's why we need the intercept. All C are maybe going to heaven. So all corrupt people are going to heaven. That would be a bigger set enclosing all the two that we've done earlier. So all A's are inside B, set B, and all B are inside set C. That is why you then say all A's are inside set C, because one will be the subset of the other, which is also the subset of the other. You can't conclude therefore and say the bigger set is rather inside the smaller set. It won't work that way. All right. Thank you very much. Let's take Joshua Nkrumah, and then I do disjunctive syllogism. When you go for tutorials, ask questions.
Okay.
They can't conduct any lecture, so ask questions, sir. Practice like we are doing. Then you do fine. I'm listening, sir.
Okay, madam. Madam, please. My concern is to know the sound and not sound.
So
Okay,
if it's sound first, but you understand validity, have you seen?
yes, madam. I
At
have a
least for the
statement. I
first
want you
three.
to.
So when it's valid, when the pattern is such that the conclusion follows, so either modus ponens or tollens or hypothetical, those are the ones who ask you questions on and disjunctive because it's only 4. Otherwise, we could do constructive dilemma, we could do addition, conjunction. They are all there, but they are not part of what you are supposed to learn. Okay. So if you establish that it is valid by any of these 4 patterns that the textbook requires you to know, then go further and check the premises the evidence, the reasons of it, to see if they are actually true via observation. Okay.
Okay, madam.
If they are true. So soundness is tricky. It's very tricky. One of our exam questions had to be changed. At the time we were using it, the Pro-VC, then Pro-VC, who is now currently our Vice Chancellor, she was a Pro-Vice Chancellor. So the argument, the question said, determine whether the following argument is sound or not, or evaluated. Prof. Nanaba Apia Amfo is the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana. Then Prof. Nanaba is the Pro-Vice Chancellor. Therefore, the argument was valid and it was sound then because she was the Pro-VC. You see that? Now, that argument may still be valid if it is still in the system, but your answer cannot be sound because she's not the Pro-VC now, she's the Vice Chancellor. So soundness depends on the truth or falsity in actuality of all the premises, not just one. Okay.
Okay, but madam, what about if you don't know that? If you don't know the chance counselor is?
And if you don't know that one, it can be the lecturer's issue. Like if someone says if someone said Ghana is in West Africa, and West Africa is in Africa, therefore Ghana is in Africa. You see.
Yes.
This is like a hypothetical syllogism of a kind,
Yes.
Then we ask you to evaluate. You say, oh, it's not sound. You're not knowing that Ghana is in West Africa. No. That one is a different sickness. I won't be able to help. But where the issue being discussed doesn't have objective truth, then it helps not to even talk about it being sound or not sound. When we say evaluate, just talk about its validity and leave yourself the trouble because you may not be able to establish it with certainty. Like currently, we can talk of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo. If I say all presidents of Ghana are always more than 50 years when they come to power, something like that. I don't know, because Nkrumah more than 50. I want something that is sound. Then I say Nana Addo is the current president of Ghana, and he came to power when he was above 50 years. You see, I'm trying to create an argument that is valid, maybe modus ponens, and also sound because it is true. Now you will see that that can be true for today. If next 4 years or so, Nana Addo is no longer in power, that same argument will not be sound. So you're not knowing that he's no longer in power will not make the sound become unsound. That is why I'm saying it helps when it is a clearly objective matter where we are able to determine soundness. So validity is our focus, but where even the premises are all true actually, then it is enriched. You have a richer assessment to give. All right.
Okay, madam, please can you check this my statement for me? Whether it's valid or not valid.
Statements are not valid or not valid. This is a possible exam question.
I have a statement.
Listen, I'm telling you something that will help you. We don't describe a statement as valid or not valid. It's arguments that are valid or not valid. I hope you get the difference. Because that can be a possible exam question. Go ahead. So you want me to check your argument?
Argument, yes.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
HP is a laptop.
Yes.
And therefore, laptop uses software.
Yes.
And now, is it valid or not valid?
It's not a syllogism yet, too. All the valid patterns you have been asked to do, to study, are syllogisms, two premises leading to one conclusion.
Oh, okay.
So create one. I could check for the validity of this for you. It could be simplification, it could be conjunction, where there's only one premise leading to a conclusion. That one is not a syllogism. The four you are studying are syllogisms. So if it is like all HP are computers, my laptop is an HP, therefore it is a computer, that will be valid. We all just learned it. Modus ponens.
Okay.
It should be 3 steps, 2 premises, and then a conclusion.
Okay.
All
okay,
right.
thank you.
The other ones too, we can check, but they will not benefit you. I mean, if you are a philosophy student, element of formal logic is there. That's what they are doing now. Next year, they will do deductive logic. We will teach them that. Natural deduction, all of it. You have different valid patterns and the test for validity. Okay. But this particular course doesn't do that. So if I can teach you, I inspire you and all that, but you will not be examined on that. Why?
Okay,
All right.
madam.
Thank you very much. So now we quickly finish with the baby last. Baby last called
Yes, madam. Question.
disjunctive. You have a question here? Give me a minute. Okay, let me do disjunctive syllogism
Yes,
for you
madam.
to know it. Then I'll take all questions. We'll pause the recording and take all the questions. See disjunctive syllogism, it says, this is the pattern. Very simple, not complex. It deals with a disjunction, see, or so far, our starting point is always if this, then that. If this, then that. All this, that compound, that connective operation is called a conditional, like long division or multiplication. Multiplication is not addition in maths. So conditional is not a disjunction in logic. Disjunction is a different operation altogether. It's an either or, okay? That's the first sign to help you distinguish a disjunction from the other three. Now, what is the pattern? It says you start with an alternation of one or the other. So either A or B, or not if then, not if A then B, no. Either A or B. Then the next premise says not A. Then what will the answer be? I want a chorus answer.
B.
Yeah, it will be B.
Then it's B.
Exactly. Alternatively, I could have said A or B, not B. Then what would the answer be?
A. Then it's A. Then A.
Oh, that is all. Simple obedience to rules. I give you an exam question. I say true or false. Then in the very question that I'm asking you, I say the answer is not true. What am I telling you? I'm telling you choose false. Or I give you a question. And then I ask you true or false. Object is a disjunction. True or false. Then I tell you, but the answer is not false. Then I'm telling you choose true. So as for disjunctive syllogism, it's small headache. I save at Barclays on your screen now, or I save at Stanchart. Then the next premise says not Barclays, a negation of one of the alternatives. Then it means you can conclude the other one. This is not modus tollens, friends. Watch, the negation is done on only one. And the starting point is what? Disjunction, either or, not if then. Not all this have done this, no. So a negation of one, then you can conclude the other. Now the wrong one, which the book doesn't highlight too much, but it is worth noting, they call it false disjunctive syllogism. Tries to do disjunctive syllogism, but instead of negating one of the alternatives in the premises, it rather affirms one and comes to conclude with a negation. That's not valid. So where you say A or B, then the next premise you say A, therefore you conclude not B. That's not valid. A who? Yes, I'm telling you. So true or false? Then you say it is true, therefore it couldn't have been false. That's not correct, logically speaking. We don't have too much time, but I'll just touch on it briefly for you to see. There is always an inclusive sense of a disjunction. When you have a set, the mass folks amongst you, when you have circle and square, so either circle or square, it always comes with what? An intersection. They join at the middle, the Laodicean church. I call that one the Laodicean church. Lukewarm, hot or cold. Then you see that there is a portion that is both hot and cold. That's the intersection, the middle line. Every either or comes with that. So there is the circle only, both circle and square, that's the middle, and then what? Square only. Every time you have an either or, there is the blend. That's called the inclusive sense of disjunction. Then the circle only portion is called the what? Exclusive sense. Then the square only portion is called the exclusive sense. So every either or statement has an inclusive sense. It could be both. So if you come to my home, I'll give you poponsu, that is porridge, or I'll give you fufu. You could come, I give you the poponsu, then you sit a little, We chat and chat and chat, and I noticed that, oh, you've stayed for too long. Maybe I should top up with the fufu. It doesn't negate what I said, that it is either porridge or fufu. I could give you both. That's the nature of disjunction. So the only valid pattern, the one that you can validly conclude, is what? A or B. Not A, not one of them. That means the intersection, everything that is in the intersection is cut off. Then what will be left with will be what? Only A. So A or B, not A, then you can say therefore B. A or B, not B, then you can say therefore what? A. But you don't say A or B, A, therefore not B. That's not valid necessarily. It doesn't follow necessarily. A or B, B, therefore not A. That's not correct either, okay? So negate one of the alternatives in the premises and it will lead to the other one. If you don't do it that way, you commit a false disjunctive syllogism, my friend will say, silo. And if you did that, then we are so good. Any questions? You people didn't give me a holiday. It's 2 o'clock, grind. It is start to finish. First group, the same thing. Hey, there were 300, the same thing. No mercy for the. Ask me your question now. Someone had a question, so that those who need to go can go. Go ahead. Somebody
Okay,
had a
madam.
question. Yes,
Yeah,
Bene, go
madam.
ahead, please.
Okay, madam. With the modus ponens,
Tolerance,
you
yeah.
made example. Yes, you made example like no planet goes around the sun. No planet orbits around the sun.
Yes.
Madam, this one, when you are finding you see the sentence, the first one is negative, the second one is negative. So with the third one now you are going to find, is it going to be positive or still you make it negative?
Okay, so when you have no planet orbits the sun, when you open it out, you expand it, it will be if X is a planet, then X does not orbit the sun. So your antecedent is positive, X is a planet. Your consequent is the one that becomes negative. S does not orbit the sun. Those are your raw materials that you will now use to do either modus ponens. If it's modus ponens, then right after this, your next premise, you say the Earth is a planet, therefore it does not orbit the sun. Finished. You picked it and brought it as it was given to you. If it's tolerance, you say X orbits the sun, therefore X is not a planet. You have negated both, but you brought the consequent first before negating the antecedent. Does that help a little? You are muted.
Please, madam, go away.
Listen, you should learn the rules. You see that? It is when I say the rules, you should just simple obedience. That is what this thing does. That's why sometimes when you tell students, submit the work at discussion 2, then they tell you, oh, doc, I put it in the Dropbox. I sent it as an email. I said, whoopa, you are doing critical thinking. Now if you go to, I'm just using that to help. If you go to the ATM, they gave you a pin to access your money. Like I keep saying. Then you go there, your pin, you yourself, the pin you chose is 1122. And you go there, you say, oh, it doesn't matter between 2 and 3, it's just 1. So instead of 1122, you key in 1123. You won't get your money. So it's quite a discipline. It shapes you like that. That's what we are trying to do together. Okay. So the rule says if you want to do modus ponens, that's the poor one, after the antecedent, the main statement, if you write your general statement, if P then Q, what you should do next is to bring the P, the statement that is the antecedent, bring that one first and conclude with the consequent. We don't care whether the starting point was a universal statement, which is negative, or a universal statement, which is positive. Insofar as you identify your antecedent and consequent, bring antecedent first, that's for modus ponens, and conclude with the consequent. Repeat what was given to you. So if originally they were both positives, bring them positive, positive. If originally they were both negatives, bring them negative, negative. If one was positive, the other was negative, you are doing ponens. You only affirm, you bring it as it was given. But bring the antecedent first and conclude with the consequent. That's modus ponens. That's the rule.
Yes,
Now, if
madam.
it's
You
modus,
said when the first one, you said when it's negative, then you bring
because
negative.
it's modus ponens. We haven't gone to
Okay.
ponens yet.
Okay.
So that you don't confuse the negations, you know. If they were originally given to you and doing ponens, you just bring it as it was, no confusion at all. Just affirm the antecedent first, and then you conclude with the consequence. So now, if it's tollens, the rule is different. It says, bring the consequent first, conclude with the antecedent, but in each case, negate. That means turn what was given to you originally upside down for the consequent first, then do the same for the antecedent. So you would have to practice what it means to negate. Negate means if originally I said you do not pass, its negation will be you pass. If originally the statement given was you passed, then the negation will be you did not pass. That's negation. So do negation first, but bring consequent first and conclude with antecedent. Both of them negated. That is modus tollens. Okay. So if we gave you a universal negation to start with, you would have to open it out, expand it using the if then to show your antecedent and then your consequent. You have to practice that consistently until you know how to open a universal negation into the antecedent and the consequent. And I gave you a few examples. So our example which said, no planet orbits the sun, is saying that if X is a planet, then it does not orbit the sun. That is the given statement now. We have peeled the statement, so we can clearly tell which one is the antecedent and consequent. If we want to do ponens, we'll say the Earth is a planet, antecedent first, therefore it does not orbit the sun, just as it was given. We have done modus ponens. Okay. If it's tollens, we will rather start with the consequent. That is, does not orbit, you see. But because we are bringing the consequent first, we will negate. So we'll say X orbits the sun. Therefore, X is not a planet. That will be valid. Modus tollens. My lady. Lady Benedict, are you there? Yeah.
Yes, madam.
So
But
the rest,
madam, the example you gave, the reason why I'm confused is that you gave two sentences.
yes,
and
because there are several
middle
things we can do with it. So I will
Yes,
remember. I will remember what I did at that
yes. So
time.
madam, like in the example, the first one was negative. The second one too was negative. That's why
Like if
I was
you do
asking.
not study, shall I give an example? Like if you do not study, then you will not pass. Maybe sir.
Madam, let's use the planet.
Which planet? The planet, I can give it as a universal affirmative, and I can give it as a universal negative. Okay, it depends on what was given. So it's a raw material. Thankfully, this is recorded, so you can play it back and get that particular place. And then if it is a confusion you have, you can ask me, Madam, look at it.
Like they gave chorus answers, so I didn't get it.
No, don't worry. All the chorus answers were dealt. I don't want you to shift responsibility too much. Otherwise, you struggle to learn it. Okay. You can always get to it. So when you get to that particular recording, I'll share it. You can tell me, Doc, listen to the 18th minute to the 21st minute. That place, they said something there. Even though you summed it up, I still don't understand. Okay, we can work it that way. I want to help you see it because you are eager to get that. If they both had antecedent and consequent that are negative, you don't care about it. You just obey the rule. Affirm antecedent first and conclude with a consequence, just as it was given to you if you are doing what? Modus ponens, that's all. If it is modus tollens, negate the consequent first, then conclude by negating the antecedent, and you get a good modus tollens. If you do it differently, you could commit either the fallacy of affirming the consequent, or you could commit the fallacy of negating the antecedent. That is also there. They are fallacies. I don't know if those are the ones that are confusing. So let's see how you go about that. If it still doesn't help, you point out that place if you play back, or send me several particular examples so that I can engage with you. Okay. Asantua, your hand is up. Thank you, Bene. Asantua, your hand is up. Asantua, Georgina, that will be the last one, I think. Then I can end the recording. Go ahead quickly. Asan. Asantua, Georgina, is it a question, please? Okay, so Asantua, if you check and it's a question that you want me to help you with, then you let me know. I end the recording now so that people can go and have fun with the rest of the day. But I still see some few hands up. I will deal with them.